Hello everybody, today we're going to be making pattern 178341 on bracelet book, and this pattern is by Soda Pop, which if you have watched my past videos, you know I have a little bit of an obsession with Soda Pop's patterns, but that's okay. So this is a pretty cool bracelet because it's a shaped pumpkin bracelet. So we're going to tie onto just 2 strings throughout these, and then on the middle we'll shape it out into a pumpkin. So it's gonna be a pretty cool pattern when we're done. And so let's get started, shall we? So I got all my colors that I needed. You're gonna need a green, or in my case, I'm using blue for the background and the stem, just because that's what I have. Then you're gonna need your colors for your pumpkin. So you shouldn't need that much of the orange string. You are gonna need a lot of whatever the green/blue or whatever color you're gonna use for the actual bracelet and stem. You'll need a lot of that, but you won't need tons of your orange colors. You will need a orangish yellow, a bright orange, and like a darker orange. So these are the colors I'm using, and we'll just need a little bit of tape and some scissors, and that is all the supplies you'll need. Everything will be linked in the description if you want to just go buy it, but if you already have it, perfect. So let's start with our background string. This is going to be our background string and our stem color and our main string. So this is an alpha pattern, meaning we are going to be working kind of in a grid system. We're going to go right or left to right, and then right to left, and then left to right, and repeat that for the whole pattern. With the blue string, I'm going to make background string that we're going to be tying onto with the rest of our string. And if you've made an alpha pattern before, you'll be pretty familiar with this. If you haven't, this might be a little bit new. This is a good starting tutorial, even though it gets a little more complicated with the shaping, but it should be a bracelet that's not too hard to make, that doesn't take too long, so it could be a good one to start on. So if we look at the pattern, we can count how many strings we'll need. There's also a way you can just look at the number, but I like to count them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're gonna need 8 background strings. I'm going to cut these out on this, and with these you only need them about as long as you want your bracelet to be, plus whatever you're going to finish it with. The way I'm going to finish this bracelet is I'm going to do an adjustable back, so I'm going to leave about 5 inches on either side of what it would actually take to wrap around my wrist, and that's about how long I'm going to make my background string. That might be a little long, but I always prefer to be too long than too short, because there's nothing worse than working for hours on a bracelet and then realizing that it's going to be too short. So this is about 1 and 4 inches. So I think that should be a good, that's 16 inches. Sorry for anyone using different measuring metrics. Me, I'm just a lowly American. Anyways, so I'm going to cut out, did we say 8? Yeah, 8 of those strings in that length. And we're not going to be tying with these, so it's really nice for figuring out what length we want, because you don't have to account for the size of knots and how much string that takes. These will just sit in the background for us. Now I have my 8 strings all in that length that I need. I am going to add this string to a little bobbin just because it's going to make it easier to tie on with. You don't have to. You can use it just like this. But I find it a bit easier. If you don't have a little plastic bobbin and you don't want to buy one, you can also make one out of just like something small, some small little piece of cardboard that you can wrap the string around. And this is what they look like. I've taped a little thing onto it in the past. I'm just going to pull that off. So I'm just gonna wrap this on here, and again, this is not a completely necessary step, but it can be helpful. Then our next step is we're gonna take this big bunch of strings we have, and we're gonna tape where we're gonna start. If you want to reference this bracelet, you can see that we just kind of start the bracelet, and then we end up tying those together in a way that makes it look like a rope. It makes it look really clean. So we're just going to give ourselves enough space to make this rope end, and then we can start our bracelet and have a nice clean flat edge right there. So you can use washi tape. I'm going to use this tape because if I don't use like a stronger tape like this, then my bracelet doesn't stick because I make such tight knots. But you can use washi tape if you'd like. And then we're going to make sure there's enough space in the middle, and I kind of like to match the ends. You don't have to, but might as well. Enough space in the middle to fit around your hand. So then I'm going to just grab this side and just tape right above that. There we go. As you can see, it's going to be a really clean start to a bracelet, just like that. And then we'll end up using these ends to make a finishing when we are done with the pattern. So then we're going to separate our, I kind of like to look at these strings as like a canvas. So we're going to separate our canvas, and they'll kind of naturally line up in a specific order. So I just follow that order. You don't have to at this point, but once you make a row of knots, you're going to have to follow that order. What's pretty nice with alpha bracelets is it's pretty straightforward once you've made one row on which strings to tie onto. So it keeps it really clean, and you don't have any like little mistakes like that, which is nice. Now we're going to take our first color, which is going to be this blue that we're using, and we can see that this is 22 and it's all just those. So we're going to make 22 rows of this little blue guy. So on the pattern, we see we're going to go from left to right, and with this one, because we are doing just 2 rows, instead of working on each string like we normally would for an alpha, we're going just to tie onto this bunch and this bunch. So split the strings in half. We're going to tie onto those bunches for 22 rows. And that's what makes this pattern really nice, is it's a lot faster of an alpha pattern than one that, say, you're tying on all 8 rows, because you only have to make 2 knots every time. With alphas, you're going to take whatever color you're tying on with, and you're going to tape it just to the side. Because this is the same color as our background string, I'm just going to do a little trick where I pull it and I match it up with the top, so it's just as long as all the other strings. And that way we're just gonna bunch it with the other strings when we finish it, and there's no random string bit that's just like hanging off. So makes it really nice. We're gonna make sure 4 groups in this side, 4 groups in this side. We're gonna take this one that's taped. We're gonna make a little 4 shape over this first one, and we're going to pull that through the loop. So we slid it underneath this and over this, and we made a little loop. And we're gonna pull it up. I like to hold down the ones I'm like pulling onto, and as I pull this one upwards, that way I find that the knots are really clean. But that's not our full knot. A forward knot is 2 of those. So we're gonna make another 4, put it under that and over that through that loop, and then pull that up. There we go. There's a really clean knot right there. So that's the first one. Then we're going to put these aside, and we're going to move on to the second bunch. The blue right here, we're just going to take it and do another forward knot onto these ones. So that one, pull that up, make another 4 shape, and pull that up. Okay, so you can see we've got 2 really clean knots up here. As we go, it's going to get a little skinnier because this first one's always a little bit wider than the rest, but it'll fix itself as we go. Now, instead of doing forward knots, we're going to tie onto this again, but I'm going to switch it so that I have really straight edges. So this is the straight edges technique. What you're going to do is we're going to do going this way. Instead of just doing backward knots, we're going to do a backward forward knot, and then a backward forward knot, and then we're going to do a backward forward knot, and then a forward backward knot. So we're going to switch off. I will show you as we're going. Hopefully it'll make sense as I kind of direct you what to do, but just follow my lead. If that's too complicated, just do 2 backward knots, which is making a P and pulling that through twice and then that twice. But for our our forward backward knot, which is what we're starting with, because we always want the second knot to be going in the direction we're going, I'm going to make a 4, pull it through that little hoop, and pull it up, and then I'm going to do a backward knot. So we're making a P, or a backwards 4, and then we're going to pull this through and pull up, and there's our knot. Then we're going to go to this other one. I'm going to do a backward forward knot since I want to be ending forward. So I'm going to go backward and then forward. So making a P shape, pulling it through, making a 4 shape and pulling it through. Then I'm going to repeat that knot. So that's our row 2. We're going to be doing 22 rows of this. So I'm going to do this 4 or P shape, pull it, and then a 4 shape, and then pull it, and then go to the next one. We're going to do a 4 shape, pull it, and then a P shape, pull it. Then we're going to do another 4 shape, pull it, and then a P shape, pull it, and then a P shape, pull it, and a 4 shape, pull it. Now that's a little bit more straightforward when you are doing more than just 2 strings. The 2 strings is making it kind of weird, and I know you might be thinking like, what the heck is going on? Again, sorry, it just makes the edges so straight, and I just love to do it this way. If you just want to go forward and then backward and then forward for each of the rows, feel free to. It'll be a little less straight, it'll still turn out good. So I'm going to do that for 22 rows. I'll show you a few more of them so we can do a few more together. And then basically you're just repeating what I'm doing, so you can just rewind it and repeat it until you get to 22 rows. So I already tied them to this one, so I'm going to tie another one, doing a backward and then forward, and then go to this one and do a forward, backward, and then do this one again, forward, backward, and then do this one, backward, forward, do it again, backward, forward, go to this one, doing a forward, backward, another forward, and backward, and going this side, doing a backward, forward. This is really good practice for getting your backward forward knots in. And do another backward forward. Okay, and then as soon as you get to the point where you'd repeat, so we're doing a forward, backward, a forward, backward, and then we're doing one on this side, a backward, forward. Once you get to this point where you've done one knot on that side, you can restart. I'll tell you what timestamp to go to, and then you can just repeat that until you have 22. If you want to make it a little bit longer, you can, but 22 should be good. We will address that when we're back, but yeah, get to 22 and we'll come back. Okay, and now I've got to this point. I ended up actually doing extra rows because I didn't feel like it was long enough, so I did like 4 extra rows. If you do extra rows, just make sure that you end going from right to left, because we're going to start the next row going left to right. But this is where our shaped pumpkin starts. So if we look at the pattern, we can see that it has the rows, the 2 rows right here, and then it's got 4. So 4 with our yellow color. Now that means we're going to want to turn these 2 groups of strings into 4 groups of strings, which is pretty straightforward. Let's just ignore this guy and put him up there for now. Pretty straightforward. So we're going to split each group of 4 into groups of 2. So that one, and then this one over here. Now that we have these 4 groups that we're going to be tying onto, we'll pretend they're all their own string. I turned my yellow string into a little bobbin, which makes it easier for me. And I'm going to just tape this along with our bracelet. And this one, I'm not making the same length as the blue because I just want the blue to be in my rope finish, but this helps just secure it with some tape that I already have. Now, color changes are usually more simple than they are in shaped bracelets. For this, we are actually just gonna put this blue behind all the strings. So we're gonna make sure it's behind all of them. And I just did that by putting it underneath those 4 on the right side. We're just gonna make sure it's behind. It's gonna kind of like come over to be the top, but we're just gonna leave it there for now. And for our yellow, once we have that, we can start to tie onto these strings. What's nice is all of these are yellow, so we're just getting the yellow incorporated in the bracelet before anything else. We're going to start with a, again, on the edges, I like to do forward backward knots and backward forward knots. You don't have to do that. If I'm going to the right, just assume I'm doing forward knots. If I'm going to the left, assume we're doing backward knots, but I'm going to do my straight edge technique. So if you want to follow me with that, that's great. You're going to make a 4 shape over that blue with the yellow. Then you're going to put it through the loop and pull it tight. So it's not going to be completely secure yet. You have to do your second forward knot. There we go. Now our yellow is secure. We're going to go on to the next group of 2 strings, and we're going to do another forward knot. So make a 4 shape, pull upwards, make another 4 shape, put it through the loop, pull upwards. There's our second knot. With our third one, we are going to also do yellow. So we're going to do 4 shape, pull it through the loop, 4 shape, pull it through the loop, and then our last one right here, I'm going to do a forward backward knot. So 4 shape, pull it through, then I'm going to do a P shape, pull it through the loop and pull up. Okay, that's our first row of 4. Now we're going to look at the pattern again. We have a row of 6 yellow. So that means we are going to want to use 6 strings. As you can see, if we separated all of them, that would be 8. So we're just going to separate a couple of them. So in the middle, I'm going to pull apart my groups of 2 strings. And now we have 6 to tie onto. So 4 just single strings in the middle and then bunches of 2 on the outside. I'm going to be going back to the right now, or back from right to left now. So I'm generally just going to be doing backward knots, but for this first one, I'm going to do a forward backward knot. So make a 4 shape, pull up. Again, this is the string that we just tied onto. We're just going to do it again, and it's a bunch of 2 strings. Then we're going to do a backward knot for our forward backward knot. Then we're going to go to our next string. This time it's not a bunch of strings, so remember that. We're going to do a backward knot. So P shape, pull up, P shape, pull up. Then we're going to go to the next one. Do the same thing. P shape, pull up, P shape, pull up. Then on to the next one. P shape, pull up, P shape, pull up. Then the next one. P shape, pull up, P shape, pull up. Then we've got our last strings. There, it's a bunch of 2 strings. Make sure you keep these ones together. Don't separate these ones. And again, I'm just going to do a backward forward knot to finish it off. So backward, make a P shape, pull up, forward, make a 4 shape, and then pull up. So that is that entire row. As you can see, it's kind of growing a little bit. We're making that shaped bracelet, which is very nice. For this next row, we are going to be doing 7. So we're going to separate these strings on the bottom because you can see that it's 7, and then the one that is not included is right at the top. So we're going to start on this one. Then we're going to be doing a color change to our dark orange, then a color change to our light orange, then a yellow, color change to a yellow. And then we're going to not be tying onto that string. So right here, we're going to be tying onto 2 strings for all those. So let's separate these 2. Usually, right, you tie onto the same place you just tied. For this one, I'm going to tie just on this knot on the farthest. And we're doing 2 yellows, so I'm going to do a backward forward knot. So P shape, pull up, 4 shape, pull up. Then we have 1 more yellow, so now onto that next string that we just separated from that one. We're going to do just a forward knot, so 2 4 shapes, pulling up. Okay, now we have a color change. So obviously the blue one was an interesting color change. Now I'm going to explain to you how I do normal color changes with my flat alphas. So I have this yellow string, I just put it straight up. So it's kind of just sitting there out of our way for now. We're going to grab our orange string that I put onto this bobbin. I'm going to just tape it down. I just have some extra tape right here. And for the sides, I just use washi tape because the base needs stronger tape, but the sides just need washi tape. I'm just going to tape that down next to the bracelet. So I'm going to be tying half of my knot with this orange string onto this next string. And then I'm going to be moving the yellow string. I'll show you. So we're going forward. So I'm going to make a 4 shape with this orange around this next string that we haven't tied anything onto yet. I'm going to pull it through and pull it up. Of course, it always looks weird when you first tie onto the bracelet. But then we're going to make sure that the one that we are changing to is on the right. The one we're changing from is on the left. So we're going to take the one that we're changing from, so the yellow, we're going to put that down and to the right, so that when we take this orange and bring it down, it's right on top of it. Then we're going to do the second half of our knot. So make a 4 shape, put it through the loop, and pull up. As you can see, we have this little loop right here that was just kind of naturally formed. What we're going to do is we're going to hold down the base, we're going to hold down that orange string, and we're going to pull. Sometimes you can just put your finger right on top of it and pull that yellow string. And then that is our color switch. The final step that's very important is take this yellow, put it underneath all of the blue. So we're just going to make sure it's nice and out of the way. So you can see that that's where our pattern's supposed to be at. I'm going to take this and just put it up in the corner with our nice blue string up here. So they're just hanging out waiting for their next turn. Then we have a second knot that we're doing with this dark orange. So obviously the yellow is kind of like in the way. It'll get out of the way soon. So we're going to take this dark orange onto our next string. We're going to do a 4 shape, pull up, and then a 4 shape and pull up. As you can see, the yellow, we might need to pull it again. So just put your finger onto where you got your pattern and pull that yellow, and it'll fix itself as we go. With the shaped, it is kind of interesting, but it will work out. So now it's time to switch to our light orange. So I'm going to grab my light orange. Mine are actually pretty close in color. They look good, better on camera, so that's good. I'm gonna take this orange that we just tied with, put it straight up, and we're changing to this orange. So I'm just gonna add this with under the same tape as that one, just because I don't need a new piece of tape for every single one. I'm gonna take it, put it underneath the strings that I have tied onto already. The strings I haven't tied onto yet, I'm gonna choose the next one in the row. Then I'm going to make a 4 shape because we're gonna do the first half of our forward knot and pull up. So there's one half of it. Then we're going to put the one we're tying with up on the right side. The one we are changing from, we're going to put on the left side, pull it down, and pull it to the side to the right so that it's underneath this orange, this light orange. Then I'm going to pull the light orange down and make my second half of my forward knot. There we go. Then I'm going to kind of hold everything down and pull that last color that we used. Then again, final but important step, we're going to take it and we're going to put it underneath all the strings we haven't tied onto yet. So now we kind of have 3 colors that we're playing with here. This is all the colors we'll need for the whole bracelet, so it doesn't get too complicated, but it is the trickiest part for a lot of people, so don't feel bad if it's taking you a little bit of work. But for now, we are going to go on to our next string and make a forward knot with this new orange. And that is our second forward knot, or second knot with that orange. So for the final step, you should have 2 strings right here. If you see 3 on mine, ignore that. I made a mistake. I accidentally tied onto the same one, but I'm just gonna ignore that, and you should be fine if you did the same mistake. But in general, if you followed my instructions, you should have 2 strings right here. We're gonna color switch to yellow, and this is gonna be our last knot. Take that orange, make sure we put it up and out of the way. We're gonna take our yellow. Now this can get a little complicated too, trying to figure out exactly how to get it underneath. Just make sure that's not pulling any of the strings with it. We're gonna take it, put it back underneath the ones we're working on. We're gonna make our first half of our forward knot. And then we're going to put it up onto the right side of the one we're changing from. We're gonna put that one down through. And then this yellow, I'm gonna do a backward knot for my second half of the knot because it is the end of our row. So there we go. We have that row finished, and that was definitely by far our hardest row so far. So good job. I hope you're feeling good about it. Our next row, we're gonna also have a lot of color changes. We are going to be doing row 26. So we're gonna start with 2 oranges, and then we're gonna, 2 of our light oranges. Then we're gonna do 3 yellow, 1 dark orange, and 1 light orange. So let's get started there. We're still in 7 rows, so we're just going to be using this one. This color change situation is a little tricky because of the yellow right there. If we try to do our normal change on this side, then it can make it a little bit complicated. So I'm just going to leave it up there while I make my first knot with the orange. So I'm going to do a forward backward knot again because we're on the edge and I like my straight edge technique. Forward, then backward. Then for this next one, that's where we're going to do the color switch. So I have 1 more of the orange knot, and then I'm going to switch to yellow, but I'm going to do this anyways. So I'm going to do half my orange knot. I'm going to take the yellow. And because we're going from right to left, we're going to switch what direction it has to be when we're doing the color change. So when I have my color I'm putting up and out of the way, it's gonna need to be on the left side rather than the right side of the color you want. Then you're gonna take the one on the right, put it down and to the left. So as you can see, it's kind of the opposite of what we were doing before. Then you're gonna take your one that you're changing to, and you're gonna make a backward knot. So a P shape, pull up, another P, pull up. Then, in general, when you're doing a color switch, you're going to take that one you just switched from and put it underneath the strings. But in this case, because we're actually switching right back to yellow, I'm just going to keep it out. Because that orange one we put up and out of the way. Then we're going to make a half of our knot with yellow because we got 3 yellow knots ahead of us. So half of that. Then we're going to take that orange, which should be on the right of the yellow, take it down, put it down and to the left. Take this yellow one down and do the second half of that knot. So now we can take that orange, put it underneath all our blue strings, and that one can just hang out to that side. As you can see, my bracelet's starting to jump around a little bit, so this is where I'll probably add a little bit of tape just to hold it down closer to where we're at on the bracelet. And when I do that, if I ever add tape, I want to make sure all those extra strings are out of the way, and then I can pull them back up because I just don't want them to get taped down to the place. So we're tying with this yellow now, so we can get it back into our hands and not out of the way anymore. We got 2 more knots to tie with this one, so we're going to tie onto both of these blue ones at separate times, I should mention, because that can get a little complicated. So I tied with a yellow onto that one. Then I'm doing another backward knot onto this next blue. And as you can see, that's our 3 yellow knots. So we're going to switch. We're doing dark orange for this one and then light orange for the very last one. You're going to pull these strings apart. You remember that the yellow we're just going to put up and out of the way. And then it's a dark orange first. So we're going to take this dark orange, put it underneath those strings. And then we're going to tie the first half of our knot with this dark orange. And we're doing a backward knot, so one of the backward motions, put it up and out of the way. We're going to take this yellow one and put it down and underneath it, so it looks like that. Then we're going to take this orange, bring it back down, and make our second half of our backward knot. And then pull them to make sure they're sitting correctly. And then I'm going to take the yellow and I'm going to put it behind this blue string. And then I'm going to take my light orange, and my light orange is going to go under that string that it's about to tie on. Remember that we put the dark orange up and out of the way, and then we're going to take this and do our first half of our backward knot. And remember, on the edges I do backward forward, you can just do a backward knot. I'm going to put the dark orange underneath it into the other side. And then I'm gonna do a forward knot because I'm doing a backward forward knot, but again, you can just do a backward knot there. Then we are done with that row. So we're gonna move on to the next row. On row 27, there's an orange, there's 5 yellows, and then there's 2 greens. So I'm using blue for my greens just because I already have it on my bracelet. So I'm gonna start with that light orange that I just tied with. So I'm just gonna do a backward forward knot because that's what I always do on the edges. Backward, forward. And then I'm gonna put that up and out of the way because we're gonna do a color change this direction. So I'm gonna take the yellow, bring it back underneath, and then I'm gonna be tying with this for 5. So you just gotta do the color change first. So I'm just doing a forward knot, or half of a forward knot, putting it up next to on the right side of that orange, bringing the orange down, and underneath this white, or this yellow string, taking the yellow string back down and making the second half of my forward knot, and then pulling both of them to align that. And then I'm going to take the orange and put it underneath the rest of my strings. So now I've tied one of those yellow knots. Okay, and then I'm going to do 4 more of these yellow forward knots. So just separate the strings one at a time and do the forward knots. We can start to see that our pumpkin is coming together. Here, I'll go on to my 3rd forward knot. And you can, what's nice about this bracelet is it's actually pretty quick just because of how thin the sides are. So you can really make a lot of these bracelets, or like make a second one of these bracelets after we're done and change up the colors a little bit. So then I have my 5th yellow knot right here. Then I'm going to put that yellow up and out of the way. We're switching to blue. So we haven't used the blue since we started the pumpkin. We're going to make sure that all the strings are not entangled. So for me, I have to bring my blue underneath that orange and then underneath those strings that I'm about to tie on. And then again, with just the way we color switch, we're going to do our first half of our forward knot with the blue. Put it up on the right side of that yellow. Bring the yellow down underneath it. Take that blue again and make the second half of that forward knot. And then, since we're not using the yellow again, we're going to put that beneath that last string. Well, we'll use it again, just not in this row. And then I'm going to do a forward backward knot because this is the last string of this pattern. And you can see that we actually tied onto all of the strings officially in that one. So we finally made our way across every single string. And now we're going to do another one of those where it goes all the way across, and then we're going to start shrinking it again. So that's kind of how you make shaped bracelets in general. So now you can do that with other bracelets, but for now, let's finish this one. So then on the pattern, this next row starts with a green, so we're going to do the blue, and then 2 orange, 3 yellow, a dark orange, and a light orange. So let's get started on that. I'm going to do a forward backward knot to start off this row with my blue. There we go. And then we're going to switch to orange. So I'm going to bring my orange underneath all the strings like that are in its way. I'm going to do the first half of my backward knot, take the blue down and around that, and then do the second half of my backward knot with that orange. Then I'm going to take the blue, put it underneath all of those strings, and then I have one more orange to do. Then I'll switch to yellow, backward knot. Now I'm going to put that orange up and out of the way. I'm going to take that yellow and make sure I put it under all of the strings that I've already tied onto. And then I'm going to do 3 yellow knots after including the color change. I'm going to put that up on the left of the orange, take the orange down and around, take the yellow down, and finish that knot. And I'm going to put that orange under the rest of the strings. We're gonna do 2 more yellow backward knots. Then we have another color switch. We're going to switch to a dark orange. So I want to take this dark orange and put it underneath all those strings I've already tied with. Because we ended on the edge with this one, it's a little bit tricky sometimes to get it underneath the bracelet and not over it. There we go. So just kind of mess around with that. We're going to do our first half of our backward knot there, and then put our yellow under it, and do the second half of our backward knot. And then we're gonna, for our last one, color switch to this light orange. Gonna do the first half of our knot, put the dark orange underneath it, and then do the second half of our knot, which will be a forward knot. Because I do it that way. Awesome. Now we're gonna move on to the next row. Now the next row we're shrinking back down. We're on row 29, but we are not shrinking down until that last string, so we'll do normal until then. So I'm gonna do a backward knot and then a forward knot onto the same string to start off this next row. Then I need 1 more orange knot. Then I'm going to switch to the other orange. So I'm going to take that underneath all the blue strings, which it was already kind of sitting there. So it's perfect. And then I'm going to tie my first half of my knot with that. Put the orange underneath it, out of the way, and then make the second half of that knot. And then bring that dark one underneath. Then we have 5 of those to tie. So we're going to tie onto these first 3, and then we're going to tie onto both of these 2 at the same time. So we're shrinking that pumpkin back down so that we get that nice round shape for the pumpkin. I think I chose oranges that were too similar to each other, so you can definitely mix up what kind of colors you use. For me, I'm just kind of committing because that's what I did. So now you have these 2 right here. On the very end, we're going to tie onto both of them. I'm doing my forward backward knot, but you can again just do forward knot. There we go, all done. And then for the next row, we're going to be shrinking 1 on the bottom. So we're gonna start by tying with yellow onto both of those strings we just tied onto. Then we'll do 5 oranges, and that last one that we tie will be on 2 strings as well. So I'm gonna do a color change, which I didn't end this yellow one very well. But we'll bring this over. Again, because it's on the edge, I'm gonna do a forward backward knot. Sorry if that is confusing anyone, but it just makes for very clean edges. So I'm going to do it with the color change. We're going to go my forward knot, and this is coming across the bracelet, so sometimes it's tricky. Put that on the left side of the orange, take the orange down and underneath it, and then make the backward knot with my yellow. And you can see it made a little loop right there. All you have to do is kind of hold down all the strings and pull. Then we're going to take that orange, and we're actually switching right back to it. So we'll just take this next string. We're going to do our first knot with orange, put that up on the left of the yellow, put the yellow down and underneath, and then make our second backward knot, or second half of the backward knot with that orange. Then we're going to pull the yellow underneath all of these strings. You can see I actually made a mistake. but I don't think it affects it too bad, so we're just gonna leave it. The mistake was this little string. Because I didn't put the yellow underneath all the strings, it came over the top of it, so that's what it looks like. But again, I'm not gonna worry about it. But just in case you're wondering why that is there. So now we're gonna do the rest of our knots with this orange, except on that last knot, we are going to tie onto 2 strings. So yeah, here's our 2 strings. I'm doing a backward forward knot because it's our edge. But again, you can just do a backward knot. Look at that, that's basically our full pumpkin. So technically we have 1 more row. And this row is only 4 knots long. So we're going to tie onto 3 strings on this edge, and then just the 2 in the middle, and then 3 strings on that edge. So we're starting with orange. Let's just add the closest string to this string bunch that we're tying onto. I'm going to do a backward forward knot because that's my edge. So backward, forward onto these 3 strings. Then we have just 2 normal knots in the middle, and these are both orange. So I'm going to just tie those forward knots. Then I'm going to color switch to yellow for this last one, and again we're tying onto 3 strings, so keep that in mind. I put my orange up and out of the way, and now I have my yellow down here. Again, I'm tying onto 3 strings, and because it's my edge, I'm going to do a forward backward knot. So I do my first half of my forward backward knot, so forward, take my orange, bring it down and over here, and then make my backward knot for that straight edge technique. And then kind of got to pull to make sure that's secure and in the right spot. And there we go, that is our entire pumpkin, and it's so cute. So even with my little string, it is awesome. So now it is time to get back to making the other end of it. And if you remember, we did it on 2 different sides, so you just split those strings in half. We're gonna color change to this. And the way we're gonna color change to it is, you see how both of these strings are kind of hanging out? We're gonna take both of them and put them with the string for just a minute. And then we're gonna take this blue, bring it underneath those strings, because you have to remember, as long as you did it for the stem color, it's in the middle of that bracelet. And then I'm gonna do a backward forward knot onto all of these colors of strings right here. Make sure it's pulled up really tight so that it doesn't make the pumpkin look like it's got a lump in the top. And then I do forward and backward knot. There we go, that's my first one. Now I can take these strings and put them underneath that and just kind of hide them out while I finish this, because they'll be nice and secure in there now. I just need to go to this other one. I'm going to do a forward backward, or a backward forward, and then do another backward forward, and come on this side and do a forward backward. And again, it's just like the beginning where we're switching back and forth between that. So forward, backward. Whenever you start a new row, you're going to be tying onto the same string that you just tied onto, which was actually kind of hard for me to get when I first started making bracelets. And then keep repeating this until you finish the length of the bracelet that you like. With this, it's probably best to try to do the same amount that you did on the other side. So for me, I will have to look back on the video and actually see how many I did on this side. I think it was 26. The pattern originally says 21, so do whatever you did on the first part. And I will see you on the other side. I won't make you sit and watch me do this the whole time, but then we will learn how to finish it off. Okay, now that I have finished this side, it's the same length as the other side. I am going to take this blue one I was tying with and just kind of add it to all the other blue ones. That's also what's really nice about finishing this. And then I'm just going to cut it off at the end. Then I'm going to just cut all of these strings shorter. We're gonna cut them even shorter later, but I just like to do the quick and easy trimming of them off so that we don't have any big attachments. Then I'm going to readjust this. Now I'm gonna start on the bottom and then we're gonna go up and do the top. So same story. I am going to take the bottom and I'm making mine adjustable. I have another video that's like way more in depth if you want something really specific, if you want really specific instructions. But for now, I'm going to show you just really fast. So I'm going to take these two sides. I've split the strings in half, which they were already split in half. So yeah, you can just keep it that way, or if you don't have it split in half, split in half. It's not going to split in half perfectly because we added that extra blue string, but that's fine. Then you're going to twist both of them to the right, and then once they're tight enough to the right, you're going to twist them over each other to the left, and you're going to keep twisting them. You can kind of see my fingers like will twist it as I'm twisting it around, but basically you're twisting the actual strings to the right and twisting them over each other to the left, and that makes it so that it'll stay. So we're going to do this just as long as the string will allow you, and because we can always shorten it, so we'll shorten it after we do the other side and figure out what lengths we actually need, because it's unlikely we'll actually need this entire length. So once you've gotten it to the length you want it, I know that I have plenty right here, so I'm just going to stop it right here. You're going to pinch the ends of where you originally ended it, and then you're going to twist it around and put the strings through that loop. So around, and pull all those strings through the middle, and then you're going to pull it tight. So there we go, there's our end knot for this side. We're going to do that with the other side, so we'll flip this bracelet around, do it with the other side, and then we will shorten everything and make it the right size. There we are. Now I'm gonna go to this next step before I make it the right shortness. I'm gonna go to the back of the bracelet. You can see all of the strings are sticking out. If you tied your knots tight enough, you should be able to just chop off those strings right next to the bracelet. Just be careful that you don't chop off anything else while you're chopping, because if you cut any of the knots in here, it'll start to come undone, and then that's really sad. So look at our bracelet. This is such an awesome pumpkin bracelet. Okay, now we'll figure out what size we want it to be. So I'm going to take it, I'm going to put it around my wrist, or just like put the front of it right under the middle of my wrist. Then I'm going to size it like this. So it appears that I can cut a lot off. I want to make sure that the shortest I do them, I can still pull off my wrist. So this is plenty fine. So I'm going to just kind of keep track of that with my fingers and then tie another knot with it right there. And then on both sides. So now that we've shortened that, we're gonna cut off the ends. For these knots, you're gonna wanna leave a little bit more of an excess than you did for the knots at the back of the bracelet. And then for this one, I gotta make sure this knot is tied properly, and then I'll chop it off. And if you wanna like brush out the strings right here, they make really cool tassel ends. So you just have to like chop them so they're all straight and then brush them out, and they're pretty cool. You got that. You can just keep it like this and tie it, or you can make it adjustable. The way you're going to make it adjustable is you're going to kind of like fold it around in a circle shape, the circle shape you'd want. And then I like to tape one side down, and you can take either the blue, the same color, or I'm going to do this orange just to add some like extra difference to it so you can see it well. I'm going to string both of them underneath both of these strings. We're tying onto both of those, and then you're just going to tie a normal knot with them. So you're going to take this string first, you're going to put it over like that, then you're going to put this string over this string, and then put it through this one. And some days this is easier than others. I'm struggling with it a little bit today. Watch my other video, I will link, and I'll also link it down in the description. Watch the other video to get a better tutorial of how to actually do square knots. Then once you've done whatever amount of those square knots you want, you're just going to tie a double knot, normal double knot. 1, 2, you can tie more if you want, but a double knot should suffice. And then like earlier, we're just going to cut off that string. Careful not to cut anything around it. If you're wondering, I have cut things that I don't want to when finishing bracelets, and it's so sad. Here we are. This is the finished pumpkin bracelet. It is shaped, and this is a good tutorial. Now you kind of get the gist of how to do shaped bracelets in the future. But I hope you had a great time making this bracelet and that it turned out well. And I'd love to see it if you tag me on Instagram. I will leave stuff that you need in the link below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.